Hello everyone and welcome to The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. In today's episode, this is going to be a short video, but I think it's going to be a very interesting video. And for all of you guys out there and gals who like to do artistic images using Topaz Studio 2, my creative toolbox, I think you're going to like this one. I had a comment the other day on my creative toolbox series number 25, the Santa Claus painting that I did. And this comment came from Paul Huth, and he was saying, hey, this is something I like to do to my impression type paintings that I do in Topaz Studio 2. I like to add the oil paint filter in Photoshop. Now, I'm going to show you what he does, and it's a really cool thing, and you're going to learn a lot here today, and I think it's going to make your paintings a little bit extra special. It's going to give them that little something extra. And by the way, don't forget the Topaz holiday promo is going on right now, 30% off all software bundles and software upgrades. And it runs up until January 1st, 2021. Plus, you can save an additional 15% by using my promo code, David Kelly, at the checkout. And just click on my link in the description below, and it'll take you to those sales. And now, without any further ado, let's get started. Now, Paul said this is his way of giving back to the community. So I want to thank you, Paul, for this. This is really cool. I was itching to try this out after you gave me that comment. I tried it and I thought, this is really cool. So I'm going to give you Paul's settings, what he recommends, because he doesn't like to mess around too much with it. But we'll play with it and I'll show you. You can really work with this oil paint filter in Photoshop. Now, you do have to start out in Topaz. And this is a picture I made a while back, a painting I made a while back of a covered bridge in Pennsylvania, McConnell's Mills area. And I did it in Topaz Studio 2. I really was happy with the way this image came out. But I thought, let's try Paul's method on this. And I thought this would be a good one to experiment on. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is duplicate your background layer. And I'm going to call this oil paint filter. Let's call it PS for Photoshop oil paint filter. And then just come up to filter, and you're going to find this oil paint filter under Stylize in the Stylize group. Oil paint, just click that on and your oil paint filter comes up. Now, the cool thing about the oil paint filter is it remembers your last settings. Now, if you want to jot these settings down, these are Paul's recommendations. Stylization 0.6. Cleanliness is actually 10, not 9.8. Scale is 0.7. Bristle Detail 0.6. And then under lighting, and make sure you have lighting checked on because you want to use lighting. Angle -60 and shine 2.4. And we're going to get up close and personal to this image because you don't really see much right now. You really got to zoom in to see the effect now. And where it's really going to show up is once you print out your beautiful pieces of art. They're going to look more authentic. I think so. In my humble opinion, this is a really cool tip. Now, right now, under the oil paint filter, it looks black right here. It's just because this is a preview little window here, and I have preview checked on. Now, I'll move this around. For instance, I can pick a different spot. Like, let's go down in this water here, and you can see it's showing me the water. Or I could go into the tree with this or whatever I want. But here's my big tip for you is go ahead and zoom in on your image, okay? So you can really, really get a look at what the brush strokes are going to look like with this filter applied. So let's zoom in. Maybe that right around here I think is good. And let me just go to a spot here that I like right here. Now, take a look at the preview. I'm going to shut the preview off. So actually watch the image out here when I shut the preview off. So this is what it looked like before the oil paint filter in Photoshop, and this is what it looks like after. So as you can see there, the strokes take on a more painterly look, and we're really zoomed in. But we're going to play around with some of these settings. And like I said, Paul doesn't like to mess around with it too much. He found these settings for himself, and he really liked them. But we can play and experiment. Doesn't mean you always have to use it this way. You can go ahead and experiment and, tailor it to your own needs, okay? And we'll play with that a little bit here. Let me go ahead and zoom in just a little bit more so we can really see what is going on. And if you hold your space bar down, your hand tool comes up, and then you can move this around to different parts of the painting, okay? So again, the preview, if I shut it off, you see what it looked like before, and now check it out after. It just looks more painterly. I think it really looks great. And now this preview here will always be a live preview right here, okay? And as long as you have preview on here, you're going to see it update out here as well. Now, remember, I said once you get the settings in here, it will remember them. So it's a simple matter of doing your image in Topaz Studio 2, making your painterly image, and then coming back into Photoshop, duplicate the layer, and then, just apply the oil paint filter. Now, Paul also recommends that you take this layer that you've duplicated and let's go ahead and click OK here. And take it down to an opacity. He recommends 75%. So in other words, he's just backing it off a little bit here. So let's click this eyeball. Here's the before and here's the after. Now, those are the settings that Paul recommends, and I think they're really good. But if you know me, I like to experiment. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and delete what we've just created with the oil paint filter. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the background layer again. I'll just call it oil paint. Okay, and what I'll do is run the oil paint filter on it again. So we'll come back to Stylize Oil Paint Filter. And as I said, you'll see here in a second, it remembers the previous settings, which is really cool. But now let's experiment and play around a little bit. Paul's settings enable you to keep the integrity of your painting, but just add a little more painterly realism to them. But we can experiment and we could stylize it more with this oil paint filter. And so let's just play around with it a little bit. We're going to start with the top sliders and work our way down. Now, I'm not worried about this preview window here because I have preview checked on. So we're going to see everything update on the main image over here. Let's start with stylization. Let's start to pull it to the right and see what effects we get. See what it's doing? It's changing the way the strokes are moving around and things like that. So it's adding some different artistic effects. So you can get some pretty wild and crazy looks. So we can experiment with that, okay? I don't want to alter the flavor of my painting, so I'm going to pull this back. And I might just make it a little bit stronger than what Paul said. Okay, so remember he had a 0.6 and I'm at a 1. Now the cleanliness, let's see what this slider does. Let's take it and start to move it to the left here. Okay. Okay, so it looks like it gets a little, let's call it a little more dirty when you move it to the left, and it gets cleaner when you move it to the right. So if you want to add a little bit more, I don't know, maybe a little bit more depth to your paint strokes or something like that, just move it to the left. And you'll see a little more, I guess texture would be a good word. See, because don't you see a lot more texture when I move this to the left? So it's adding more texture. So I wouldn't want to go too crazy with this control. And I think 10 is probably a good one here. But let's just move it back just a little bit. Maybe somewhere right around there, like a 9.1. Again, let's click preview here. So here's the before and here's the after. Let's move the scale and let's drag this to the right and see what it's doing. Kind of working with the textures of the paint strokes again. And I think I'm going to pull this one back. And Paul had a 0.7 on this one. And I think that's going to be pretty good. There's a 1.5. Takes it a few seconds here to render. Okay, there's like a 0.9. Let's just add a little bit more, 0.9. Now, I've played with the Bristle Detail before. It doesn't do a whole lot, so I'm not even going to play with that one right now. And now we're in the lighting section. Let's shut the lighting off and see what it looks like. Okay, it took it a few seconds. As you can see, though, that lighting really does a lot, right? When that lighting's off, it really alters the look of this image. So let's turn the lighting back on. Yeah, it's really, you need that lighting, in my opinion. You have to have it. Now let's play with the angle here and see what the angle does. So right now we're at a -60, so let's change the angle. Give it a second or two to render out here. Yeah, so it changes the way the light's hitting the image, so it's going to affect how pronounced the strokes are going to be. And let's try another angle here. And this is a pretty labor-intensive filter, so it takes it a few seconds to render out. Okay, so you can see what that's doing. I think I'm going to go back to where Paul had it, and I think a -60 is probably a good spot for that. And then the last thing is shine. This shine slider is very microprocessor intensive. I mean, it uses a lot of that microprocessor, so it's really slow. But let me go ahead and just click over here to the right here. Give it a second or two to render. This is real-time rendering. See, it took about 3 seconds to render. But you can see what it's doing there. Yeah, it is adding like a light shine to the image. So it's making that paint really pop out. And I think, honestly, where Paul had it was probably pretty good. Now, he had his set at a 2.4. Let's go lower and see what we get. Let's go to around a 0.9 here. Give it a second or two. The lighting is really low on this right now, so we don't see the paint strokes as intense here. And I think Paul worked really hard to get these settings, so I'm going to take his recommendation. And I think shine is going to be like that 2.4. I think it's going to be very close. There's 2.2. I think I'm going to leave mine on 2.2. Yeah, right there. Now let's take a look. Here's the preview. Here's the before, and here's the after. So I'm just giving a little stronger effect to my image. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and that'll accept it. And, you know, we can leave this up at 100%, or we could take this down if we wanted to. Let's take it down to Paul's recommendation of 75%. Now here's the before, and here's the after. So pretty cool. I think I want it a little bit stronger, so I'm going to take it up. I'm going to take it up to 90. I think 90% right there. Now remember, this effect's really going to show up at, you know, when you're really zoomed in, and when you have a print that, you know, when people really go up and examine your print, they're going to, you know, it's going to look like a painting to them. Okay. So let me go ahead and zoom back out. Okay. So let me shut off the oil paint layer, and I don't think we're going to see much of a difference here. Okay. Here's off. All right. And here's on. So again, off and on. It kind of smooths it out a little bit, but again, where you're really going to see it is when you zoom in, and let's look down at these paint strokes on the water here. Now let's go ahead and shut off the oil paint filter. Here's the before and the after. One more time, the before and the after. It's not an extremely strong effect, but I think it is something that will really make our Topaz Studio 2 artistic creations more authentic. So I want to thank you for this, Paul. Much appreciated, sir. Well, there you go. And I really think that this is a nice addition to your Topaz Studio 2 creative art pieces. Thank you so much, Paul. Add that oil filter at the very end. It'll give your image a little more realism. Hey, let me know what you think about this in the comments section below. I'd really love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the tutorial today, please give it a like and share it with your friends. If you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe and click the bell notification icon. Then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing.